Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to MSNBC special coverage of the Las Vegas massacre. I'm Ayman Mohideen alongside Yasmin Vasugi. And this morning, investigators are still trying to figure out what drove a madman to open fire into a crowd of about 22,000 people at a music festival, killing at least 59, injuring more than 500 others.
This video came in overnight of FBI agents searching the hotel room where 64-year-old Stephen Paddock carried out that horrible attack. We're told police recovered 23 guns from the room and another 19 firearms from his home in Mesquite, Nevada, along with explosives and thousands of bullets. Most of what we know about the gunman came from his brother, who spoke several times yesterday. Take a listen.
He's definitely only himself. There's no affiliations. I mean, once again, that I know of at all. I mean, there's no affiliations. There's no church. There's no religion. There's no politics. There's no anything.
Had he had any issues with mental illness in the past?
No mental illness. No, I mean, once again, that I know of.
From what I know, he was perfectly fine. He had substantial wealth. He was a multimillionaire. He had multiple $1 million. Okay?
I mean, our condolences to everyone. We just don't understand. It's like I said, an asteroid just fell out of the sky. And we have no reason, rhyme, rationale, excuse. There's just nothing.
Obviously, a family member there very bewildered by what took place as well. All right, let's go to Las Vegas. NBC News' Ron Allen standing by for us. Ron, good to talk to you this morning. You're on the Strip, near the scene of the crime there. Give us the latest on the investigation as people try and figure out and really ask that question as to why he did this.
Exactly. Why? And who is this individual? The police have added that they had no knowledge of this individual. He had no parking tickets. He'd never been arrested for any crime. So he was completely off the radar. They have no idea why he would come here, assemble this arsenal and unload and just a massacre on innocent 20,000 people at a concert. There just seems to be no connection. There's nothing in social media. The police say there's no note. There was no manifesto, which sometimes these shooters leave behind to explain their rantings about why they did what they did. Here's a bit more from Paddock's brother Eric about who he thought his brother is.
Nobody's ever going to say he was a normal guy, okay? This was a single guy who gambled many more hours than anyone you know gambles probably. But it was like a job to him. And I'm just going to say this and I'm done. He was a guy with a girlfriend who lived in the hotels he got comped to stay in the hotels.
He gambled that much.
He was a substantial gambler, absolutely.
Was he violent? Was he violent as a youngster?
He has no history of violence in any way, shape, or form. They'll talk to his girlfriend. They'll find this out. He's never hit any. He's been divorced twice. He's friends with both. He's good friends with both of his exes. It was good, you know.
Authorities are talking to his girlfriend, who he lived with in Mesquite, Nevada. The question, what can she tell them about why he had an arsenal and explosive materials in the home that we believe they shared? Authorities aren't saying that she helped him. At this point, they're saying that they believe he acted alone. But again, still so many unanswered questions in this bizarre, deadly mystery. Again, authorities are trying to piece it all together. They're also trying to identify the victims. There are over 500 people who went to area hospitals. There are at least 59 people who have been pronounced dead. Their relatives are coming to town to try and see what happened to their loved ones. So this is going to play out for many, many days, weeks, and months to come. Guys, back to you.
All right, NBC's Ron Allen for us. We'll talk to you again in a little bit. Thank you, Ron.
And as Ron mentioned, we are learning more about the victims. And besides the 527 wounded, we are learning more about the 59 killed, victims coming from all across the country, among them 34-year-old Carrie Barnett of Riverside, California. Her brother-in-law told the Ocean County Register that Barnett loved hummingbirds because she saw them as a sign that her grandparents were watching over her. Cameron Robinson was an employee of the city of Las Vegas, attending the concert with his boyfriend. His sister confirmed his death to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He was just 28 years old.
Rhonda LaRock, 41, of Tewksbury, Massachusetts. Her sister told the Boston Globe that she attended the concert with her husband and daughter, who escaped unharmed. Incredibly tragic. They're losing a mom. The mother of 3 boys, Naisha Tonks, loved to travel with her sons. Her brother told Utah's KUTV. Lisa Romero Muniz was remembered by students at the Gallup, New Mexico High School, where she worked as someone who was there for them. And 33-year-old Raquel Parker, whose mother told Spokane, Washington's KXLY that she volunteered with the homeless and elderly. She was hit along with a colleague in the Manhattan Beach Police Department who survived.
And Debbie Allen went to the concert with her 29-year-old son. They actually arrived separately, watched the concert apart. She tried to find him, a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, when she heard the sound of gunshots.
I was trying to run towards wherever I thought he might be. And this man wouldn't let me. He kept pulling me away and saying, "You can't run towards a gunfire."
How did you hear the details about what happened to your son?
From the man who was with him, the fireman that was walking behind him.
And what did he tell you?
He told me my son was shot in his chest and that he said, "I was hit, I'm hit." And that they all bent down again when the gunfire began, and then my son just fell back. He has a vet. He has a shirt with a gun shot through it. He sat on a lot of bombs and never blew them up. And
in Afghanistan?
In Afghanistan. And he was a proud American. He sang in Spanish. He sang in Spanish all the time. He was so beautiful.
Just absolutely heartbreaking there. Joining us live from the University Medical Center in Las Vegas, NBC News' Kevin Tibbles. Kevin, with a good morning to you. What's the latest you're hearing from hospital sources there and officials? Obviously, we know there was a massive number of people that were injured in the attack. They've been treated at various hospitals in the area, but what are you hearing?
Well, what is happening now, of course, is that they are sort of reassessing what has gone on here for the last 24 hours. As you've been mentioning, I mean, it's more than 500 people. I mean, that is a war zone, and they were all taken to various medical centers. Several still remain in critical condition, and those people are receiving the focus of the medical staff at this trauma unit this evening and this morning. Doctors and nurses, medical staff, first responders have obviously been working around the clock, trying to save as many lives as possible. Obviously, if they had not been here, the death toll could very easily have been higher. Now, at this particular hospital, there is a sort of a situation set up where if people come looking for loved ones, they can check in here in the cafeteria, type some names into a computer, and you can be assisted in helping to locate someone who may be missing. And fortunately, some of the people who are with minor injuries are starting to be released. We spoke to one girl, Amber DeVoice, as she was waiting for her mother to pick her up. She was shot in the ankle.
There's shrapnel in my foot still. They didn't do any surgery on me, so I'm going down to USC to see a specialist.
And how do you feel that you're able to come out, even though you're in a wheelchair, you're able to come out and that you're alive? I'm
praising God because I have a son that I get to go home to. So I'm thankful.
So many stories of ordinary people perhaps doing extraordinary things last night, trying to save as many lives as possible. Now, throughout the day and throughout the evening, people have been coming to the area hospitals. They've been dropping off bottles of water, foodstuffs, flowers, small signs, condolences. This town is doing its best to pull together. Back to you, Ayman.
Yeah, it's going to be a long road for recovery for a lot of those people. All right, NBC's Kevin Tibbles live in Las Vegas. Thank you.
All right, the Vegas Strip now slowly getting back to some semblance of normal. I don't know how you can really do that after what just took place over the last 24 hours, but the mood there is obviously very subdued. For more on that, I want to go to NBC's Blake McCoy along the Strip. Blake.
Yasmin, good morning. We are on the far south side of the Strip in front of the Mandalay Bay. This remains the only part of the Strip that is still closed. North of us, the Strip has reopened, and we're seeing people leave their hotel and start to resume their lives. But all around them, they are finding reminders of what happened.
Vegas is a city built around escaping reality, but now reality has found it.
Everybody's very, very, very quiet, I find. Compared to yesterday, it's very different.
A noticeably somber mood as tourists return to the Las Vegas Strip after many spent the night on lockdown in their hotel rooms.
We just sat still and just kind of watched, and we could see the Mandalay Bay from our hotel room, so we just could see the lights and the ambulance going.
Police officers have replaced street performers. The Bellagio fountain sits quiet. Hotel marquees have gone black with thoughts and prayers, as well as phone numbers to call for the missing and addresses to donate blood. It's a stark change in tone for a city glamorized in movies for wild fun and a mantra of anything goes.
Now this is Vegas.
Vegas headliners are offering words of condolences. Jennifer Lopez writing, Las Vegas, feeling so broken this morning. Celine Dion saying she is praying for all the innocent victims and their families. It's been nearly 4 decades since a tragedy of this magnitude struck the Las Vegas Strip. The 1980 fire at the MGM Grand Hotel, what's now Bally's, killed 85 people and led to a major overhaul of fire codes. The long-term impact of this tragedy remains to be seen, but already a community responding with huge lines to donate blood.
Thank you for your support.
And an outpouring of gratitude.
What are they saying?
Just thanking us.
Many of the shows here on the Strip went dark last night out of respect. That includes the Cirque du Soleil shows. But I spoke with one headliner, Frank Marino, whose Divas show was dark last night. He says they plan to turn those lights back on tonight to help people return to some sense of normalcy. Guys?
Yeah, that city's certainly coming together during this incredibly tragic time. All right, NBC's Blake McCoy for us in Las Vegas. Thank you.
And last night, Congress observed a moment of silence on the House floor in memory of the victims. Speaker Paul Ryan presided as members stood quietly, but not all were willing to stand still. As Capitol Hill producer Frank Thorpe noted, Democratic Congresswoman Catherine Clark of Massachusetts walked out of the chamber as Ryan was calling members there to order.
Her colleague Seth Moulton, also of Massachusetts, tweeted earlier in the day, as after Orlando, I will not be joining my colleagues in a moment of silence on the House floor that just becomes an excuse for inaction. Now is not a moment for silence. It's a time for action. Political reporting that a bill to loosen restrictions on purchasing gun silencers, which some expected to be voted on by the House this week, is now likely to be postponed. And last night in the Senate, Democrat Chris Murphy of Connecticut called for outrage over the carnage in Vegas to be turned into action.
Thoughts and prayers need to be matched by action, and that's our job. Our job, frankly, is not to just send good thoughts. The reason why we exist is to act, is to change the laws of the nation.
And we're going to hear more with Senator Murphy when he joins Morning Joe later this morning.
And another major story we're following for you. Legendary rock icon Tom Petty has died at the age of 66. Petty, originally from Gainesville, Florida, went into cardiac arrest at his home in Malibu early yesterday morning and later passed away at the UCLA Medical.
This morning, President Trump dealing with the tragedy in Las Vegas. But today, he tours the devastation in Puerto Rico. We're going to talk about that coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. We've been covering the carnage in Vegas, of course, but we want to switch gears a little bit. In just a couple of hours, President Trump will depart for Puerto Rico to view the devastation from Hurricane Maria firsthand before heading to Las Vegas tomorrow.
The president, along with the First Lady, will meet with the first responders and FEMA officials there, in addition to the victims of the historic storm, before later meeting with the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Nearly the entire island remains without power, and about half of all households still have no running water, believe it or not. Despite this, the president has been heavily criticizing the mayor of San Juan over the past several days.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water. We're closely coordinated with the territorial and local governments, which are totally and unfortunately unable to handle this catastrophic crisis on their own, just totally unable to.
All right, so let's go to San Juan, Puerto Rico right now. NBC's Mariana Atencio joins us live from the island. Mariana, good to have you with us this morning. What's the feeling like on the island surrounding President Trump's visit? What kind of welcome are we likely to see him receive as the commander-in-chief?
Eamon, Puerto Ricans are still suffering, and they expect President Trump to deliver on his promises to give the island the supplies it so desperately needs. And let's face it, the optics over the weekend, especially after those comments that you played, they weren't great here on the ground. We do know that the president will be coming in with the First Lady to Muñiz base in Isla Verde. That's about 20 minutes from where I'm standing now. He will then visit a chapel, and he will get briefed on the latest updates from the governor of Puerto Rico and from the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands. The latest numbers from FEMA show that things have been improving slowly, but improving here on the ground. We do know that additional barges with food and water will be arriving today. 65% of grocery stores open in Puerto Rico. 69% of gas stations are operational. Puerto Ricans have filed 90,000 applications for FEMA assistance. They've dispersed around $7 million. And when you start driving around, you see that those lines, especially here in San Juan, for food, for cash, those ATM lines, they have dwindled considerably. But the lines that are still very long are the lines for ice, because as Francis mentioned, a lot of the island still remains without power, without cell service, and that is going to take a lot of months, according to experts, to restore. A lot of months after President Trump has come and gone here from Puerto Rico. Guys?
Yeah, I'm not sure he's also going to be meeting with the mayor of San Juan. I think those two over the last couple of days have exchanged some heated comments. All right, Mariana Atencio live in Puerto Rico for us. Thank you.
All right, up next, everybody, much more on the massacre in Las Vegas as the president and the world is reacting. We're back in a moment. Welcome back, everybody. President Trump spoke yesterday with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who extended his condolences over Las Vegas yesterday. President Trump calling the shootings an act of pure evil.
Our unity cannot be shattered by evil. Our bonds cannot be broken by violence. And though we feel such great anger at the senseless murder of our fellow citizens, it is our love that defines us today. And always will, forever.
Later, while meeting with the Prime Minister of Thailand, the president spoke about the response.
The police department has done such a fantastic job in terms of the speed, and we all very much appreciate it. So we'll be going to Puerto Rico tomorrow, and on Wednesday we will be going to, as you know, as I just said, we'll be going to Las Vegas on a very, very sad, it's a very sad moment for me, for everybody, no matter where you are, no matter what your thought process. This is a very, very sad day. So we're going to be doing that on Wednesday, and we'll be spending the full day there and maybe longer than that. So thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, the Las Vegas shooting is the deadliest mass shooting in modern American history, surpassing the 49 killed just over a year ago in the Pulse nightclub shooting. It's also more than the total amount killed in the Virginia Tech and Sandy Hook elementary shootings combined. In fact, Sunday night shooting in Las Vegas was deadlier than the deadliest single day for Americans in the entire war in Afghanistan. That is all 16 years worth, by nearly double. 30 Americans, in addition to 8 Afghans and a U.S. military working dog, died when their Chinook helicopter was shot down by the Taliban in 2011. The 527 wounded on Sunday is also far and away the highest for a mass shooting. For some perspective, about 680 were injured in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. So just absolutely staggering when you put it against some of those other deadly days.
Yeah. All right. And still ahead, everybody, we have new information as officials continue to search the hotel room of the gunman overnight. We're going to go back live to Las Vegas. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Yasmin Vasugian alongside Ayman Mohideen. We're on early this morning covering the deadliest mass shooting on American soil in Las Vegas, along with the president's trip to Puerto Rico. This morning, investigators are still trying to figure out what drove a madman to open fire into a crowd of about 22,000 people at a music festival, killing at least 59 and injuring more than 5.
Ron Allen. Ron, good to have you back with us. If you can, bring us up to speed on the investigation. What leads, if any, do police have to work off of? And do we know anything new about the suspect himself, Stephen Paddock?
Well, they've got all these weapons that they're going to trace. They're going to figure out where they were purchased, who sold them to this individual, and how he assembled this arsenal. There's also, as you pointed out, explosive material. Where did that come from? They're also looking at his companion, a woman described as his girlfriend. Mary Lou Danley is her name, 62 years old. We believe that they lived together for some time. What did she know about this arsenal in their home? And did she know anything? Earlier at a briefing, the authorities said that she was not a suspect, or they didn't think that she was involved, because they said that they believed that Paddock acted alone, but they haven't ruled out anything at this point. It's so early. It's only 24 hours or so into this investigation of this massacre, this disaster. So they're also just trying to figure out why. That's the big question. Why would this individual do this? He was completely under the radar. He hadn't even been fined for a parking ticket, authorities say. So a lot of unanswered questions about him, his motive, where he got these weapons, and of course there's the process of trying to identify all the victims and reunite loved ones who are coming into town with loved ones who were here at this concert, and of course those who have been lost.
Ron, let's try and bring people a little bit up to date, if you can, on sort of the timeline of events that took place during the shooting last night. People seeing that image of the 2 windows blown out, talk to us a little bit about what exactly took place from what we know from authorities inside those 2 adjoining hotel rooms. And also, are we hearing of any surveillance video? We know Vegas, a heavily surveilled place in general. All of those hotels have cameras everywhere, obviously because of a lot of gambling going on in those casinos. Hearing of any surveillance footage of Stephen Paddock walking in and out of the Mandalay Bay and checking in, what kind of suitcase he was carrying, that sort of thing?
We've not seen any new surveillance video, and yes, you're right. Obviously, the police are looking at everything. This place is, yes, under constant surveillance in the hotel, and the question is, how do you bring in an arsenal of 23 weapons into a hotel? And at some point, he had to assemble them, presumably, up in the room. The sequence of events begins around 10 p.m. at night when this concert is going on, the 3rd day of the concert, and shots ring out for a short period of time, 10 or 15 seconds. The crowd goes crazy, and people are running for cover. People are hitting the ground. No one knows what's going on. Police arrive. A SWAT team comes. They try to figure out where the shots are coming from. Apparently, a smoke detector is going off in the hotel room, and that signals authorities as to where the shots are coming from, as well as the muzzle flashes that can be seen from the ground. So the police come up into the hotel. They arrive from and enter the floor from the bottom up, coming up the floors. It takes about 72 seconds for them to get from where they are to the room. So I'm sorry, 72 minutes for them to get from where they to get to the room and identify the shooter. He apparently takes his own life, and that's the end of it at that point. But again, how this all happened and why, it's just an awful mystery.
Yeah, and you know that the authorities are going to try to piece together the timeline from the moment he checked in on Thursday up until that deadly shooting began on Sunday night.
But think about the response and how quick it was, that 72 minutes from the time that first shot rang out to when they went to the 32nd floor and were able to neutralize him and find him. I mean, just unbelievable work on behalf of authorities there.
NBC's Ron Allen live in Las Vegas for us. Thanks, Ron.
All right, emerging from all the chaos here are so many incredible stories of survival, including one man who says he ran in to help others only to be struck himself by gunfire. He spoke with NBC News' Josh Mankiewicz from his hospital bed about his terrifying story.
It was very odd. I didn't feel pain, really. I went down and immediately just saw blood everywhere. I really feel like I owe my life to a couple of girls that I'll probably never find out who they are. They grabbed me by the legs. They dragged me over to the side and took her belt off and put a tourniquet on my leg, grabbed a couple guys next to them and said, you will carry him out of here. They were literally loading us into the back of tow trucks. I was laying on somebody that I honestly don't believe made it. Nobody cared what you looked like last night. Nobody did. They wanted to save your life.
Mike Cronk was also at the concert. In fact, he told nightly news anchor Lester Holt that his friend was shot and described the young man he was carrying to safety dying in his arms.
We actually loaded 4 wounded people up in the back of a pickup truck and tried to get to the hospital. And I'm not sure which road we were on. We might have been on this one, and they stopped us because there was still a live shooter. And so we ran around. Finally, we ran into an ambulance, and so they started triaging, and we got my buddy in the ambulance. And one of the young men that was in the back of the truck, as I was carrying him, he passed away. And so we got the other 2 in the ambulance. So that young man, somebody's son, passed away right there. He was not by himself. He was always with somebody.
I think that's a very powerful statement. He's saying that he did not die by himself, that there was somebody there at least by his side.
Absolutely. Good to hear if you were a parent of that young man, to hear that he wasn't alive. Let's go to Las Vegas once again. NBC News' Kevin Tibbles joining us. Kevin, you hear these stories, and it sounds like something you would hear in a war zone. Yeah. And we're hearing it in Las Vegas, Nevada, not something that you would associate with that type of thing. How are people feeling on the ground there?
Well, some of the doctors who have been treating the patients served time overseas, in Iraq in particular, and they have been saying that the wounds that they were seeing overnight were wounds that you would see in a war zone. And I've got to tell you, with numbers over 500, with the number of dead approaching 60, with the number of critically injured still being treated in the hospitals here in Vegas, I don't think that it's too far of a leap to suggest that parts of Las Vegas were at least turned into a war zone last evening. And when you're listening to these stories and you hear so many of these things, and there's so much been talked about how often this is happening in our country, and then you see who these people were: a school teacher, a fisherman from Alaska, a librarian, people from Western Canada, people from Tennessee. It really does start to hit home that these are people that we probably very easily could have known, because so many people come to Las Vegas for a myriad of reasons. People come here to have fun. People come here for the bright lights. And all of a sudden, those lights have been dimmed just a little bit, and probably will be for some time. Back to you.
Kevin, I know you're standing in front of a hospital there. Did the trauma center, level 1 trauma center, I believe that you're there in front of, did they feel ready for something like this, for this many victims, and for this many tragedies? 59, the number right now.
Well, I think the answer is twofold. No is the first one. I don't think that they felt ready for the absolute onslaught of the injured. There were points during the night last night when various trauma centers were saying we can't take any more unless it's life-threatening. And the other part, the answer to the question is yes, because they did save lives. They have done tremendous work, and they are still doing tremendous work on those people who are still clinging to their life in the trauma centers here. But I don't know of anyone anywhere in any city could be prepared for 500-plus victims coming into their door after an event like this. Yeah. What a horrible night.
Yeah, and we now know also that there's more medical professionals and doctors that are going to be crossing the border, coming into Nevada to help out.
Support, yeah.
Absolutely. All right. NBC's Kevin Tibbles for us. Thank you.
And to Kevin's point as well, that so many people are coming to Nevada. Well, tourists are now starting to return to the city on the Strip, but the mood is subdued. Joining us from Las Vegas once again, NBC News' Blake McCoy. Blake, give us a sense really of, as you know, we were talking about how the city is trying to get back to normalcy, but you really can't use the word normalcy given everything that we've seen over the past 24 hours unfold. But there's no doubt that the city is going to try to get back. We heard from the mayor saying that, she wants to see people return to the city, to see the joy come back to the city. It might be hard, but tell us what the mood is there like right now.
Yeah, there is a somber cloud hanging over this city, but we are seeing signs that things are returning to normal. Right behind me right now, in front of the Mandalay Bay and the Luxor, this remains the only part of the Strip that is still closed. North of me, everything's open, and last night we saw people emerge from their hotel rooms. Many had been on lockdown during the incident last night. They emerged from their hotel rooms yesterday and started to resume a normal life. They visited shops, they visited restaurants. The mood, though, was much more somber. many of them told me, than just the day before. There was a heavy police presence out there yesterday, and it remains tonight. Those police officers are not in tactical gear. They're not worried about something else happening. Instead, they're there just to reassure people, and we saw people going by and shaking their hands, thanking them for their service. Also, all of the marquees along the Strip that are normally lit up with advertisements for shows and events, all of those have been turned black and instead have phone numbers for people to find the missing, and also addresses of blood donation centers. And man, have people turned out to those centers. At one of them yesterday, there was a 4 to 6 hour wait to donate blood. Many of those people locals, but some tourists as well, who felt compelled to go out there and donate. It's their way of feeling like they can do something in a situation that oftentimes people feel so helpless. Guys?
Yeah, I mean, Blake, you raised a really good point about everyone coming together, even the tourists that are wanting to donate blood. We saw the long lines. Have you gotten a sense from people in terms of the security? Do they feel safe being in a city like Las Vegas after something like this?
Yeah, and everyone I spoke with, I said, what do you think about what happened, and does it change your opinion of Las Vegas? Yes. Would you come back? And every single one of them said they would come back to Las Vegas. They said, unfortunately, this is the new reality. I spoke with a couple from Canada. They said they just had a terror attack in Canada a few days ago that most of us here in the U.S. didn't hear much about. So these terror attacks are happening all the time. They're happening everywhere, and people are recognizing that, and they're not going to stay away.
It is a term that we probably don't like to use, and we hear police commissioners and others say this is somewhat the new normal, and it's a scary thought to see that this is how many of our large cities and smaller cities are now dealing with. NBC's Blake McCoy live in Las Vegas for us. Thank you.
If you think about how many times we've covered events like this, and it's really terrible. All right, former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot in the head during an assassination attempt 6 years ago in Arizona. Since then, she's becoming a strong advocate of gun legislation reform. At a press conference in front of the Capitol yesterday, Giffords and her husband, retired astronaut Mark Kelly, called on Congress to enact stricter gun laws.
Does anybody actually believe that our gun laws are too strong? Give me a break. Action to save lives is the only acceptable moral course for our country. Without action, we are asking one person to be the next person, to die because of our weakness to address evil. And then another, and then another, and then another.
The nation's counting on you.
Right.
All right, still ahead, much more of our continuing coverage into the worst mass shooting in U.S. history in Las Vegas and the mounting questions over the suspect's ability to get such an arsenal.
That's a central question.
Welcome back, everybody, to our continuing coverage of the mass shooting in Las Vegas. Investigators continue to try and piece together a possible motive as to why 64-year-old Stephen Paddock opened fire into a crowd of about 22,000 people at a music festival, killing at least 59 and injuring more than 500 others.
Yeah, and we're told that police recovered 23 guns from the room at the Mandalay Bay Hotel where Paddock carried out that attack from, and another 19 firearms from his home. For more on the investigation, let's go to NBC News national intelligence and national security correspondent Ken Delaney. And Ken?
Eamon, authorities last night updated the number of firearms they said they seized from Stephen Paddock's various locations to 42 in total, including 23 that they said they seized at the Mandalay Bay hotel room and 19 at his house near Mesquite, Nevada. And that happened as new information was pouring in about Mr. Paddock, much of it anomalous in the world of mass shooters. His profile really doesn't fit, starting with the fact that, according to his family, he was extremely wealthy. He may have been worth as much as $2 million. He seemed to be making his living in recent years as a professional gambler. He was a high-stakes poker player, and we know from transactions that the FBI observed that he was betting as much as $10,000 a pop over multiple days. He was a college graduate, his family said, who worked as an auditor for a time for a defense contractor. He was living in a retirement community. He's 64 years old. He was living with his 62-year-old Asian-American girlfriend, who is now in Tokyo, and authorities say she's not a suspect. So there's a lot about Stephen Paddock that just simply doesn't fit what we've understood about past mass shootings, but we really don't know the biggest question, which is what was his state of mind. And the FBI and other authorities are now pouring through his computers and his social media, trying to determine that, Eamon. Another question that is not answered at this point is, what was the source of that automatic weapons fire, that seeming machine gun fire that we all heard on the horrific recordings of this shooting? Machine guns, as you know, have been illegal for sale in this country since 1986, but it's possible to buy a pre-1986 grandfathered machine gun legally if you register with the federal government. It's also possible to modify a semi-automatic weapon so that it fires in automatic fashion. And so authorities have not said here what happened. Did he buy a machine gun either legally or illegally, or did he modify a semi-automatic weapon either legally or illegally? Back to you, Eamon.
All right, thanks to Ken Delanian for that report.
A lot of questions there. NBC correspondent Jacob Soboroff spoke to a group of survivors inside the Mandalay Bay, including one man who was on the same floor as the gunman while the shooting took place, as well as a retired firefighter who was among the crowd when shots rang out. Take a listen.
It was very scary. We were sitting there enjoying music. We heard what we thought were firecrackers. It ended up being gunshots. I grabbed my sister's hand and said, we need to get out of here. We're going to be trampled.
Did you see anybody that was down on the ground when you were out there?
We saw a couple of people. One woman was having chest compressions. I don't know if she got trampled or if it was a gunshot, but and then several people with grazed gunshot wounds.
I'm not sure there was anybody that was in the situation that you were in, which is on the same floor in the hotel as the shooter, looking out practically from a very similar vantage point and knowing that your wife was down there. What did it feel like?
It was pretty scary. All you could think about is, oh God, I hope nothing happens to her.
How did you guys keep it together during that moment?
I didn't keep it together. I was hysterical.
Dale, you used belts. You and your son used belts to make improvised tourniquets for people that were down there.
The best thing we could do for people is stop the bleeding. And once we stopped the bleeding, we'd drag them out of the line of fire, because most people that were shot were still in the line of fire. So we basically were triaging. Some people were not savable, and we'd move on to the ones that were and get them to a place where they had some cover. Now that it's over, it's very difficult to believe that this actually happened and that we were able to respond the way we did. And actually, I think we got the best outcome we could for the situation we were in.
Meanwhile, Tom McIntosh was at the concert. He was staying at the luxury, or I should say the Luxor Hotel, a luxury hotel on the Strip, with his wife. When shots rang out, they ran and tried to make it over a wall when he was shot.
I was going to try to help my wife over the fence, but it looked too hard to navigate, so we went around it to a brick wall, and I helped her up over the brick wall, and then there was another woman that needed help, so I helped her over the brick wall. And then at that point, that's when I got shot. So once I got over the wall, actually, I got his name. I got to give him a call later. Nice guy. He saved my life. He said, look, you're shot, I need to help you, and it's okay. And he dropped the tailgate on some random truck and threw me in there, and I was bleeding all over it. And he took my belt and tied off my leg and kept me from bleeding out. I would have died. So I gotta make sure I tell him thanks when I see him.
Yeah. All right, joining us by phone, former press secretary for U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Marcia Catron. Marcia, it's good to talk to you this morning. We appreciate you joining us. Was Vegas ready, or as ready as it could be, for a situation like this?
Good morning. Well, it's certainly, you can never prepare for this sort of lone wolf attack. I know that a lot of work and a lot of training and support from Homeland Security goes into the local efforts down there, and Las Vegas has a great police force and fusion center that DHS does support, but this act defied all of that training.
Marcia, talk to us a little bit about the protocol here for the Department of Homeland Security. What role can the Department of Homeland Security play in trying to help cities like Las Vegas, even particular venues? What role can the Homeland Security Department play in helping them prepare, if any, for a situation as catastrophic as this?
DHS provides a lot of training. They do active shooter training with a lot of venues and businesses. They provide infrastructure support and tips and readiness ideas. But this particular one, it's hard to prepare for. You never know with a lone wolf attack.
We've been having this conversation off camera. I think a lot of people probably are having a conversation at home is how do you protect against something like this in general? Do you just not have outdoor concerts anymore? Are you putting up metal detectors in hotels? You think about the cities that could feasibly be affected by this outside of Las Vegas, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, major metropolitan areas. Is this the time in which, or a week later, 2 weeks from now, when DHS sits down and reviews the security standards for cities like this and changes them? Or is it a conversation of we don't want this country to become a police state?
There will be a lot of discussion about venues and hotel security. But, you know, the other program, the campaign that DHS has, if you see something, say something, also reins in very big on this, because I think what will ultimately come out is that probably at some point someone near this man had an indication that something was wrong, or had a tip, or saw something, heard something, and that report may have put a stop to this, or will offer investigators some sort of clue as to what happened, and then later on what the motivation actually was.
All right, Marcia Catron, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And you and I have talked about this in the past, traveling overseas. There are countries where hotels do have metal detectors and search your bags when you're checking in, but it raises a philosophical question as to whether or not we want that here in the U.S.
It creates a different state of mind when that does exist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, in just a few hours, President Trump will depart for Puerto Rico to view the devastation there from Hurricane Maria firsthand before heading to Las Vegas tomorrow. The president, along with the First Lady, will meet with first responders and FEMA officials there on the island, in addition to the victims of this historic storm, before later meeting with the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, which was also hit. Nearly the entire island of Puerto Rico remains without power, and about half of all households still have no running water. Now, despite this, the president has been heavily criticizing the mayor of San Juan over the past several days. Joining us now live from San Juan, NBC's Mariana Atencio once again. Mariana, good to have you back with us. Let's talk a little bit about the day ahead, what President Trump is expected to see on the ground when he arrives there 2 weeks after the storm.
Eamon, when you look at Puerto Rico, you'll see, and he will see, that the vegetation, for one, is completely devastated. Only 5% of power has been restored, so he will see those down power lines. There's very little cell reception on the island, but he will start to see signs of life, especially in San Juan. You're starting to see traffic. You're starting to see some businesses that have started to open, but you also see a lot of need outside San Juan. I was able to tour with the Lieutenant General that President Trump assigned to lead the relief effort, and in areas like Utuado, in areas like Yayuba, they still haven't been able to get to. So still a lot of need, especially outside the capital here. Eamon, Francis?
All right, Mariana Atencio live for us in Puerto Rico. Thank you. Well, coming up next, much more on the horrific mass shooting in Las Vegas. We're going to go live to our team on the ground as officials try to piece together what caused the suspect to open fire on the unsuspecting crowd.